federal government wants to know who the beneficial owners are, who the managers are. They want a copy of your driver's license or passport. They're asking for a lot of sensitive information. And if you don't file this by the end of the year, the penalty is $10,000 and 2 years in prison.
Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show. So happy that you're here today. We have a really interesting and unique show today. I don't think you're hearing about this on many podcasts, if any, right now. So I'm delighted that we have a couple of guests who wanted to come on and talk about a particular topic that not many people know about yet, and it is an important one. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce a father and son team that we have on the show today. We have Ted Sutton, who's a licensed attorney, who is the son of best-selling author and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Ted was born and raised in Reno, Nevada. He graduated from the University of Utah with a BS in mining engineering. During one of his summers, he spent 3 months working at a mine in Chile. The experience made him realize that legal matters interested him more than engineering ones. And after graduating in 2018, he decided to attend law school the following year. And Garrett Sutton is a corporate attorney, asset protection expert, and best-selling author who has sold more than 1 million books to guide entrepreneurs and investors. There's a lot more to their bios and their history. I'm going to let them talk about some of that throughout the conversation. So welcome.
Thanks, Michelle, for having us.
Yeah, Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that you're here. And I thought it was really interesting because you connected with me on a particular topic that you wanted to speak about on podcasts. And it was interesting because you're the first people who had, talked about this topic as a topic to speak about on podcasts, which is really important. And I heard just a little quick mention of it from my accountant when I went to go see him to do taxes this year. And it was an interesting thing because it was a mention and kind of with a little urgency, like, we're going to take care of this, but, just want you to know this thing is out there. And that the urgency was that it has to be taken care of pretty quickly, and it's kind of a big deal. So without me just circling around it forever, why don't you guys jump in and present what this is and why it's important?
Well, Michelle, the new law that no one's talking about is the Corporate Transparency Act, and it came into effect January 1st of this year. And the government now, the federal government, wants everyone to disclose certain key information about their corporation, LLC, limited partnership, any entity chartered with the state. And so the federal government wants to know who the beneficial owners are, who the managers are. They want a copy of your driver's license or passport. They're asking for a lot of sensitive information. And if you don't file this by the end of the year, the penalty is $10,000 and 2 years in prison. So it's pretty serious, this new law. They want this information. The idea is that will help them catch money launderers and terrorist finance people. And as the Wall Street Journal said in their editorial about the Corporate Transparency Act, are the bad guys really going to self-report? Well, with that said, the rest of us all have to self-report. And my son, Ted, here is helping all our clients get through this because, again, we don't want to face these steep penalties.
Yeah, thank you. It's really, it is one of those things. When you first came on, you said, the reason that you wanted to come on was just to help people to, manage their affairs in a way that was compliant with this law. But, immediately, I think we both discussed the fact that most people don't know this law exists. So it's very hard to comply with laws that we don't know about. And so, I'm thrilled that you're here to do this for people, because that is one area with finance. I think I've done shows on this before. A lot of what we learn through our mistakes. We miss something, so being proactive in this way is really important. And okay, so you've kind of explained where this is coming from. What's the difference? What have people been reporting, and what are the specifics of what's been missing?
Yeah, so the Corporate Transparency Act is different because when you set up an LLC and when you set up a corporation, over the last several decades, that's only been done with the state. So, when you set it up, you're only reporting information to the Secretary of State. But what's unique about the Corporate Transparency Act is that this was a law that was passed at the federal level. And people are now going to have to report information to FinCEN, which stands for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and it's a branch of the U.S. Department of Treasury. So this is a really unique law because corporate law has been left to the states up until now. And now people are going to have to report information to the federal government. And they're going to need to report 3 pieces of information. The first is information about the reporting company itself. So that's the LLCs, the corporations, the limited partnerships, all that. The second piece is the beneficial ownership information. So this is any individual who owns 25% or more of a company, or they have substantial control over the company, meaning that they're a manager or director. And then the third piece of information is the company applicant information. And these are the people who helped set up the companies. So, we're a registered agent service, so it would be us. But you need to report those 3 pieces of information to FinCEN. But the thing is because people aren't talking about it, a lot of people haven't reported their information. They expected 30 million entities to report information in 2024. Wow. But as of January, there's only 400,000 companies that did. So there's going to be a significant backlog coming. And that's why it's so important to get the word out there, because it's a new law. It's unique. There's a lot of personal information that you need to report. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't reporting it. And it's scary because there is a chance that they could be hit with those significant penalties that my dad talked about.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting how few people have reported. I don't know if that's because the CPAs have all been busy with taxes and they're going to get ready to get this going now. I don't know. But yeah, so is this a one-time reporting process?
Well, you have to file this year. If you were formed in 2023 or before, you have the whole year to file. Okay. So you've got until December 31st, but I wouldn't wait that long because it's going to get stacked up at the end of the year. If you form the entity this year in 2024, you have 90 days to file the information. And then in 2025, it's 30 days to file the information. Now, what's important, Michelle, is you ask a good question. You need to file this once. But if the ownership changes, say you bring someone on who goes from 10% to 25%, you have to amend your filing. They want a current copy of your driver's license or passport. So when you get a new driver's license, you've got to amend the report. Wow. And that's why we're keeping track of these things for our clients. So instead of someone forgetting that they got a new driver's license, we're keeping this information and we'll notify our clients that it's time to send in an amendment because no one wants to face these penalties.
Wow. So even if you file, but along the way things change, you've got to refile every time you have some sort of structural or information change, it sounds like.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's different. I think I should mention that it's different than a lot of secretaries of state. It's not an annual reporting requirement.
Okay.
If you report your information once and nothing changes, then you're good. It's only when, the business changes addresses, somebody's driver's license expires, somebody changes their residential address, you add new owners. So it's a little different, but it's important that people are aware of it because there is an ongoing element to this new law.
Okay.
And so, Michelle, the government knew that it would not be popular, so they didn't charge a fee for filing.
Okay. That was my next question.
The filing
Okay.
is free because if they charged a fee, people really would have been mad.
Well, and most people are probably going to have to be paying somebody to do this filing for them, I would imagine.
Correct.
Yep.
And who are the appropriate people to do that? I'm thinking my regular CPA, but is it an attorney? Is it a CPA? Who is it that would do this for you?
Well, a lot of some CPAs aren't filing these because they consider this a legal function.
Okay.
So at Corporate Direct and our affiliate Sutton Law Center, we're providing the legal services to do this for people. Some CPAs are doing it, which is fine, but the key is, Michelle, you just got to have someone do it.
Yeah.
Right? You may not, or your professional may not know that this needs to be done. And so people are surprised. Some CPAs are mentioning it, but others aren't. So, and the other thing, Michelle, is you are held to know the law, whether the government tells you this law is out there or not. The fact that you didn't know about the law is not an excuse under our legal system.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I might be getting a little confused. So this isn't anything falling under the tax code area. It's really a business legal question. So go to your business attorney or, Okay.
It's a federal disclosure item. It's not part of the IRS or the tax system. It's just a disclosure item with the U.S. Treasury Department.
Yeah. Okay. So, and are the forms, do they exist somewhere where you can, can you go to is there a website you can go to? Is there something where you can read about it and get the forms?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can go to the FinCEN website. Just go to fincen.gov. And once you get there, you should be able to find that information pretty quickly. They do have an FAQ that you can use to e-file it.
Okay.
And, they'll give you all the information that you need to report. But another thing is our website, corporatedirect.com. You can see it on the screen there. We have several articles and videos and other resources that discuss the Corporate Transparency Act. I've done about a dozen YouTube videos on the topic, so you can find all that there, as well as a few other articles too. So, you can check out the FinCEN website, or you can go to our website and learn about this new law as well.
Okay. Which all of this brings up a whole different topic in my mind, which is, it is important to have a business attorney that you can call, or who will send you information about, changes that we are, like you said, responsible for knowing, but typically don't. As kind of a business, law 101 here, what should, an entrepreneur who is listening to this show know about what a business attorney could do for them, or, why they would need one?
Well, it's all about team. That's what Robert Kiyosaki teaches, and I've traveled the world with him, and Ted has been on some of these trips. And as an entrepreneur, you need to build a team. You can't know all the law. You can't know all the tax loopholes. So you need a good CPA, a good business attorney on your team who's going to let you know about these changes. So that it is important, as you mentioned, Michelle, to have a good attorney on your team who will keep you up to date on the new laws and the new requirements.
Yeah, so important. It's so interesting. As you're speaking, I'm just reflecting back on all the shows that I've done. I've had so many CPAs, so many financial advisors, so many, of all kinds of people on the show, and not really talk to business attorneys. And so I think this is really great, actually, goes way beyond the Corporate Transparency Act. That's an example of something that could come up that your business attorney can help you with. So, what are some other basics? I mean, obviously there's the structure for your organization. And maybe you could speak on that for a minute, because that's a very common question. is, I'm starting this business. How should I structure it? Everybody wants
Well,
to know, should I be an S Corp or an LLC?
Right. That is a great question, because when you start, if you start as a sole proprietor, you're personally liable for any claims that come against the business. So at the very start, you want to set up that LLC or corporation. And then you need to follow the corporate rules to stay protected. And that's why I wrote this book called Fail Not Fail. If your corporate veil is pierced, meaning you didn't follow the rules, someone suing the company can go through the corporate veil to your personal assets. So we want to make sure, Michelle, that people are staying current, just like we have to do with the Corporate Transparency Act, but staying current with all the corporate formalities. You need to pay the state every year. You need to have at least one meeting per year. You need to have a registered agent. You need to put Inc. or LLC on all your contracts and all your brochures. You want the world to be on notice that you're operating as a corporation or an LLC. So these are important elements for staying protected. And we're a very litigious society. And so you need to do everything you can to stay protected.
That's actually really interesting, because I think a lot of people do set up the entity and then don't do those things. They, that's really interesting. And the book again was
Fail Not Fail.
Fail not fail. So the corporate veil is what protects you
right
from personal liability. And so we don't want that veil to fail for any reason.
Yeah, very interesting. And you can find that book on your site?
And, everywhere. It's on Amazon, everywhere else.
Okay. That's terrific. Yeah, very, very helpful. So, as far as the, S Corp versus LLC versus anything else that's out there, how does one, do they all protect you in that way the same? Or is it more tax advantages that one would choose one over the other? What's the rationale?
Yeah, so when it comes to setting up an entity, it's not necessarily for the tax advantages.
Okay.
An LLC does offer the tax flexibility, but setting up the entity is really important because it's a way to protect you individually from any liability. So, having that foundation in place is very important. I like describing it as when you set up a business, getting all the legal stuff down right is kind of like laying the foundation for the house.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that you're using the right entity, that it's taxed properly, that you're performing all your annual filings, you have all the documentation, you're holding yourself out as the manager, you put it on corporate notice, all the banking's right. I know you mentioned earlier how there are people out there who say, oh no, we can set up your LLC and be your registered agent and bing, bang, boom, you're good to go.
Right.
Well, that's only the bare minimum. And, it is important to have a lawyer on your team who can go the extra mile and do all these other things for you. When it comes to the entity type, it does vary depending on what you want to do, but ultimately it's better to have it in place, because if your business is sued, then if you have a good foundation, then you're going to be much better off as opposed to doing the bare minimum.
And I will say, Michelle, that most of the time we are forming LLCs because they offer good asset protection and they have the tax flexibility, as Ted mentioned. You could be taxed as a partnership or an S Corp or disregarded entity. You can do whatever you want with an LLC for tax.
Interesting.
But typically an entrepreneur who owns a business is going to want his LLC to be taxed as an S Corp because you can minimize payroll taxes that way and still have the good asset protection of an LLC. But we offer a free 15-minute consult with an account specialist. And so if you have questions, you can just call us up, set up an appointment. We'd be happy to go through the options with you.
Okay, that's fantastic, actually. Really making me think for some of my own things, actually. That's really great. And what do you, as far as investment property, that's a different topic, but I know we have listeners who are interested in that. Any suggestions there?
Well, go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, so The structure that we like using is we like setting up an LLC in the state where you hold title to the rental property.
Okay.
So, if you wanted to buy a rental in California, what we would do there is we would set up a California LLC. And that LLC would hold title to the rental property. And the benefit there is that, if the tenant were to sue the property, then they're only limited to what's inside that California LLC. Now, instead of you being the owner of that California LLC, we set up a Wyoming LLC on top that owns your interest in the California LLC. And the benefit there is that Wyoming offers better asset protection in the event you're sued personally. So, if you were to get into a car accident or anything like that, it'd be much more difficult for that car wreck victim to reach into the Wyoming LLC and collect as opposed to the California. So
Wow.
the structure that we like doing for real estate is LLC in the state where you hold title to the rental property with a holding company on top in Wyoming that owns your interest in the rental property.
Very interesting. Okay. And what if you want that property, for example, in a family trust? How do you factor that
Well,
in?
the family trust offers no asset protection. So
Right.
you can have title in the name of the family trust, and someone suing can get not only the real estate, but all the assets in your family trust. So the family trust has its place. It avoids probate. It's great for estate planning. But in the structure Ted mentioned, the Wyoming LLC is the holding LLC. It holds all the other real estate holding LLCs.
Okay.
The Wyoming LLC, in turn, is owned by the living trust. That's how we are able to accomplish the asset protection of the Wyoming LLC and the probate avoidance of the living trust. So they work together.
See, these are the things that people would not come up with on their own to, protect their assets, to manage their companies. So again, a perfect example of how important it is to have this larger team that includes a business attorney. It's really, you made that so clear. Yeah. So okay. It just opens up like a world of questions. So you said, there's the structure and then, the sort of follow through with living within that structure. It's not just a matter of, and I think this is a mistake a lot of people make. They try to kind of, me included, to spend less money on that. So we have the structure created with somebody, maybe even a accountant or a bookkeeping company or whatever, who say they can do that. But then beyond that, that's where it kind of stops. So that's sounding more like a mistake than not. And you mentioned, the other things, the business attorney can help you with the other things that might come up. Can you give a few examples of other things that
Well, one thing I always talk to my clients about, Michelle, is having a homestead on your property. Most states offer what's called the homestead exemption. And in Texas and Florida, it's unlimited. If you have a $10 million house and you've been in a car wreck and someone's trying to reach your assets, they can't reach your personal residence. In Nevada, it's $600,000. So let's say you have $1 million house with a $400,000 mortgage on it. You've got $600,000 that's exposed. A car wreck victim could reach that. But by filing this simple form with the county, with the filing fee of $20 or so, that $600,000 is protected for you as against a later creditor. And so everybody should consider getting the homestead filed to protect the equity in their personal residence.
Wow. Okay. Another term I haven't heard. So this homestead is, explain that one more time in terms of what specifically that is.
Well, it's a form, and you can get it
Okay.
at Office Depot. It'd be tailored for your state. Some states don't have the homestead. Pennsylvania, I think New Jersey doesn't, but most states do. And so you get the form, you fill it out, and you put the legal title, where it says Block H, Lot 7. Just make sure that's letter perfect. And you file it with the county, and then you have that protection against someone trying to reach the equity in your personal residence. Now, you can only do the homestead once, even if you're in different states. You only get one homestead to protect your primary residence. But that's a very inexpensive form of asset protection for a lot of people to consider.
Wow, that's very interesting. So that's something you do for your primary residence, not for other investment properties.
And then for your investment properties, you always want to hold those in LLCs because you're renting to tenants. Tenants sue. And so we just want to have that protected right from the start.
Okay. Wow. Super interesting. And what are some of the other sort of business basics that a business attorney would help, an entrepreneur with?
Well, I think document drafting is one of them. When you set up a business, it's best to have bylaws and an operating agreement. But, given how flexible entity structures and taxation could be, I think it's best to just reach out to somebody who can help you with those. So, we help with document drafting all the time.
Okay.
So, if you have an operating agreement, bylaws, maybe you want to draft a buy-sell agreement, that's something that a business attorney can help you with as well.
Yeah, and how effective is it if somebody just sort of writes up something that feels, like it covers the bases? I mean, but it's not not an attorney doing it. Maybe it's the business owner sort of putting the terms of something together. Does that have any legal power?
Well, it can, but it may have the wrong power. You may draft something from the internet that is really not what you want. So, we do this all the time, and we want to make sure our clients are protected. So you want a good, strong operating agreement. The operating agreement is also a flexible document. It's really a contract among the owners. So you want your document to reflect what you and the other owners are doing, and a form you get off the internet won't do that.
Yeah. So don't go to ChatGPT and ask them to create your legal documents.
Right. Shell, I want to mention one other thing a good business attorney should cover, and that is trademarks. When you're running a business, you want to protect your name, you want to grow your brand, and having a trademark can be a really useful, asset to have. So we don't set up trademarks, but when I talk to clients, I always talk to them about protecting their intellectual property, including their trade names through a trademark.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm in the middle of renewing my registration for my company, and which is a registered trademark. And it's been interesting. It's another one of those things where the government doesn't, they're not alerting you to the fact that you need to do this or anything else. And I actually tried to do it on my own and couldn't. I tried to go into the U.S. Patent Office or whatever, their website, and it was supposed to be easy. I spent a whole day and couldn't make it happen. So but I was surprised. You do have to update these things. Had the email address for the attorney who had set it up for me 5 years ago, who, has gone on to do other things. So he got the email. Unfortunately, he told me, but otherwise the whole thing would have lapsed and I would have not known because they weren't emailing me.
Between the 5th and 6th year, you've got to renew it. Because so many people file for trademarks and go out of business. So, the government wants to make sure that the list is current, just so other people have the opportunity to start a business under a name that isn't being used anymore.
Yeah, and that brings up a really interesting question to me and hopefully others. It's you understand a sort of a registered trademark for your name, but what about all the other intellectual property? Like in my mind, it's hard to figure out if you're building courses, if you're writing books, if you're creating programs with their own sort of unique names. Some of it is, well, first of all, I'm still confused as to what a copyright is versus a trademark. But it's hard to know what you should protect, what it can be protected. Any guidelines on that?
Yeah, the words, the letters, the narrative of a book is a copyright. The title of a book or the title of a course can be trademarked. Someone can use a title there's no way to protect everybody from using a title. Titles aren't really protected, but you could have a trademark for the course or the book in the class of T-shirts, right? So you can get some protection, but basically the copyright, it's easy to file with the Library of Congress, protects the words. The trademark protects your business name.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So if you do put a course together, I mean, you might not be able to protect the title, but the contents of the course itself,
Yep.
I mean, you can at least make an attempt. I mean, it's so easy to sort of,
There's a lot of plagiarism out there, but if you
Yeah.
file it with the Library of Congress, you can get damages. If someone is using your material under the Lanham Act, you can get damages for that plagiarism.
Okay. But that is a specialty area. So for that, you really need an intellectual property
Correct.
attorney.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. But that's great that you help sort of remind people that that's something they should be doing.
Yeah, and that's what a good business attorney does. He's kind of a general counsel. I mean, he'll
Yeah.
say, look, I'm not an IP lawyer, but you need to protect your intellectual property, and they'll get you to the right person to help you with that. Our job at Corporate Direct is to set up the entities properly, maintain them on a yearly basis so your veil isn't pierced, and to get you through the Corporate Transparency Act.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, and I know when people hear this, they think largely of that's going to be expensive. So, to me, there's obviously it's a protection that it's hard to make that case because I like to be protected, whether it's insurance or whatever.
Well,
Yeah, I mean the
we
cost.
charge $250 to do the corporate transparency filing.
Okay.
And it's something where we have to gather a lot of information to make sure it's done properly. And then we monitor the passports and the driver's license. So we're going to remind you in 3 years that someone has to amend this filing because they had to get a new driver's license.
And sort of adding on to that, when it comes about price and the services that people offer, I think the question that people need to ask themselves is, are they getting a good value out of the service they pay for? I'm on Instagram and social media, and you see all these people who say that, oh no, you don't need an operating agreement, you don't need all these additional charges. All you need to do is just set up with the Secretary of State, get a registered agent, and you're good to go. But the thing is, kind of going back to the foundation analogy, when your business gets sued, you're going to have a shaky foundation, and it's going to be more likely that you'll be held individually liable. So in my opinion, it makes sense to just go the extra mile to set up that foundation properly, pay a little extra for the operating agreement, for the documentation, for the EIN number, and in addition, somebody who can actually do your Corporate Transparency Act filings. And, if you're doing that for your client, then they may be paying more, but they're getting a much better value out of the services as opposed to using the cheapest alternative.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's a level of peace of mind that it's hard to put a value on it, but yeah, I'm all about it because I don't like to worry about these things or to have a bad surprise down the road.
Right.
Yeah, so a lot of very interesting things that you brought up today that I'm sure a lot of people have not either thought about or or knew about. So, yeah, so you regularly, if somebody becomes a client of Corporate Direct, are they alerted? Do we get emails, for example, of what's out there that's going to affect us, like the Corporate Transparency Act?
Right. We have a free newsletter. Anybody can subscribe, and
Okay.
we will update people on what they need to do. But if you're a client of Corporate Direct, you need to file with the state. If you fail to do that, they're going to revoke your charter and you've lost all your asset protection. So we keep reminding our clients of filings, of things they need to do to stay protected. I mean, one of our biggest jobs is maintaining the corporate veil for our clients. We talk about the corporate veil being pierced. It succeeds 50% of the time, Michelle.
Wow.
It's really surprising that people do not take care of the annual minutes. They don't take care of the filings. And then half of the time, someone sues the corporation. There's no money in the corporation, and they get past the corporate veil and get at the person's individual bank account. So it's really important, and we take it very serious that we maintain these LLCs and corporations for people.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really important point. I do feel like people, they're focused on the setup, and once it's set up, they walk away. And,
Right.
What if you haven't been doing some of those things, keeping the minutes and what have you?
Don't tell anyone, and we'll clean it up for you.
Okay. Just wondering if that is a retroactive thing that you can take care of. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Super interesting. Yeah, I think we don't have much education on, we know that we set these entities up to create this veil, but we really know very little beyond that, I think, about any of it. So I think your book is super interesting, and what you're doing is super interesting. So back to the Corporate Transparency Act. If you are setting, like you said, there is an immediacy if you're setting something up in 2024, which I have actually for something. So 90 days is the cutoff. And I don't know. I mean,
well, it gets progressively shorter as time goes on. So,
okay.
For any entities that are created in 2023 and earlier, they have an entire year.
Okay.
But, in 2024, you only have 90 days. So it's definitely something to keep in mind if you want to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's important to have someone like us on your team, because we'll take care of all this stuff for you.
Right.
Because in that case, then you have peace of mind that you won't be slapped with those $10,000 fines that are in the bill.
Yeah, that's pretty steep. So they're serious about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why we're going on, because the media isn't talking about it. There's a few lawyers out there who are talking about it, but there really hasn't been a nationwide effort. And, I think the biggest concern that we have is just making sure that people are aware and that they don't get hit with significant penalties or even jail time.
Yeah, and I don't think people should be relying on necessarily, I mean, my accountant did mention it as a new thing when we had our year-end meeting, but they aren't probably holding themselves responsible for you getting this done. So I think it's important not to rely on someone, one of your professionals who is helping you with, whatever financial matters you have or business matters, to necessarily take care of this for you. So yeah. I think that's really one of the important messages is you are responsible for this. So, understand the rules and find a way to get it done.
Yep. And that's why we're here to help you.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Thank you. This has been great. I'm really glad that you reached out about this topic, because I wouldn't have thought about doing a show on this myself, but really interesting and really important. So tell us again, how to contact you. The book sounds really important. I'm excited to learn about that. And I know you're an author. So is that the book that I was talking about, Reaching a Million copies?
Yeah, Fail Not Fail. I've written a number in the Rich Dad series, so
Okay.
Fail Not Fail is the most recent one. But I also wrote Loopholes of Real Estate, and this is asset protection for real estate investors.
Okay.
And then I have another one called Start Your Own Corporation. But as part of Robert Kiyosaki's team, we want people to understand these financial matters because they don't teach it in school.
Right.
I mean, you have to get this information on your own. And if you read a book and learn it that way rather than learn the hard way with someone suing you, all the better. Mm-hmm. But you asked Michelle where we can be reached, and it's corporatedirect.com. If you can sign up for a free 15-minute consultation with an account representative, and we'll see if we can help you. We'll let you know what the cost is and everything. So as Ted mentioned, we're here to help people get through all this.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for, making us aware of the information, and also providing a way for people to discuss this further. That's great. So corporatedirect.com. It's up on the screen. I hope listeners will check that out. I think, I really think almost any business person should call just to find out what they don't know. I think that's really, we think we know what we're doing until we talk to a couple of lawyers and then we find out we don't. So, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on and trying to get the word out there, and I'll try to do the same with this show. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And listeners, always appreciate you listening to the Money and You show. And please take note of this. I mean, make sure that you're hearing, what they're saying and taking charge of your own affairs on this one. And so thank you so much for being here. We love having you as a Money and You listener. We'd love a review or for you to share the show with your friends. Please share it with your business owner friends for sure. We will continue to bring great shows like this. The more reviews and what am I saying? Ratings that we can get, the more guests that we can bring on, like the wonderful 2 guests we had today. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.